Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr., and with me, as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I am doing pretty good, and how is everybody tonight?
Tonight's episode is going to be kind of a recap and a more information kind of show. We've done multiple shows in the past on giants, and in one of those episodes, I was telling you about an event that took place in Afghanistan where U.S. soldiers had a firefight with a 12-foot tall red-headed giant in Kandahar. And I told you that I'd seen the interviews with the soldiers and all that. And this episode here is going to be about that event because there's some more information that's come out on that. I'm going to read you an article that came out in 2019 in August, and it's from newsintact.com. And the title of the article is What the Military Found in the Desert of Afghanistan Should Not Exist. And this was published on August 19th of 2019. MLA Steve Quayle was on a military program, and he brought us an anonymous pilot who didn't want to reveal his name to talk about this bizarre story about he transported this dead giant to an Ohio military base. He described to us exactly what he saw. When he arrived, officers said he had a giant loaded in an aircraft and had to take the aircraft to Ohio. This giant weight was 1.1 tons and 32 feet tall and was shot dead in a cave in Afghanistan. But before he was killed, this giant attacked the military troops. A very bizarre story. And that is the end of the article. In this article, there are a couple of videos, and they essentially tell the story of what happened. Now, this took place back in 2008, and essentially what happened, I'm going to tell the story again because I don't really want to play all of the audio from the videos on the show because one video is 25 minutes, the other one is about 16 minutes. And that'll pretty much be the show right there if I do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of tell you the tale that happened here. According to the interviews, what took place is a squad of U.S. troops went out on patrol, and they had gotten some tips from some locals that there was something going on up in this cave system, and that there had been people that had been attacked. So they went to check it out. So they get up to the area where the attacks supposedly happened, and they kind of started slowing down and keeping their eyes open and seeing what's going on. And they heard some stuff happening in this cave. They heard some sounds coming from in there. So they were making their way up to try to check on the cave. Well, they got pretty close to the entrance of this cave, and all of a sudden this giant comes racing out and throws this gigantic spear right at one of the soldiers. Well, supposedly this spear pierced right through the soldier's armor and basically impaled the man. It came right out the back of him and killed him. Well, as you can imagine, what ensued after that was one hell of a firefight. The U.S. troops opened fire on this giant, and the giant began trying to fight back, throwing rocks and trying to attack them any way he could. Well, rocks don't really match bullets. So what ended up happening was the U.S. troops ended up killing this giant. The article says that the giant was 32 feet tall and it weighed 1.1 tons. Now, I can't remember when I first saw these interviews how large the giant was. I was thinking in my head it was 12 to 15 feet tall, but that could be just because that's what the majority of the reports that we have of giants, they're around that height. So that might be where I got that. But according to this article, this thing was 32 feet tall. So that's a gigantic creature. So once they had killed this 30-foot tall giant, they called in and reported what had happened. So they waited there and guarded the body, and a helicopter crew showed up. And this helicopter had a very, very large steel net that they deployed out of the helicopter. They managed to get the body of this giant into this net. They secured it, and the helicopter took it away. Now, according to the pilot of this helicopter, they took the body of that giant to a base in Ohio. The U.S. military obviously does not have any comment on this. They're not saying it's true. They're not admitting to anything. Two of the soldiers from the squad of soldiers that actually fought the thing did interviews and told this tale of the fight, told what happened. And then the pilot did an interview and told the story of what happened. Now, I don't know whatever happened to the soldiers or the pilot. As far as I know, they haven't been heard from since. Now, I'm not saying that they're dead. I'm not saying that they've gone missing. All I'm saying is, after the initial interviews, nobody talked to them anymore that I know of. I haven't seen anything else from them. So that's essentially the tale of what took place that day. Now, the question is it true? Or is it not true? Is this one of those tales that's just made up? Or is it something that actually happened? Well, I can't say for sure because I was not there. I didn't see the giant for myself. There was no footage of the firefight that was released. There was no footage of the giant that was released anywhere. But one thing I can tell you is that whenever stuff like this happens, a lot of times the military does not say anything. They don't comment, or if they do comment, they say it's not true. So who knows what the truth is here? I can tell you that there is a lot of historical evidence for giants. I mean, it's not something that is unheard of. You have the biblical references that we've done multiple times in the past on these different episodes. You have a lot of historical references to giants. There's a lot of pictures that have been published in newspapers going back all the way back to like Wild West days and before, to where you saw these skeletons and a man standing beside it. And the skeletons are twice the height of the man easily. There was stories coming out of the Smithsonian that they were in possession of hundreds, if not thousands, of giant skeletons that were evidence of a race of giants that had once existed here. You have the ancient burial mounds that were here when the white man first came to the United States of America. The native tribes all describe a race of giants. Every one of their legends talks about a race of giants that lived here in America in the past. And there were these giant burial mounds where these giants were supposedly buried. You have the tales of the giants of Lovelock Cave. In that tale, and we might do an actual episode on that someday in the future because that's a fascinating tale. But just very quickly, essentially that is a race of giants, the remnant of the race of giants that still survives, that live deep in this cave system, and that the native people went to war with multiple times. You have tales coming out of Central and South America about underground chambers that have these crystal chambers inside of them, where they have figured out how to actually have a form of suspended animation. And supposedly inside these crystal chambers are giants that are in suspended animation, to where hundreds of years are passing out here and it feels like seconds to them, is the way it was described. Is that true? I have no idea. There's been multiple articles about it. That's something that supposedly was discovered fairly recently. I can't tell you for sure if that's true or not because there's not enough information there for me to make that decision, and I haven't seen them for myself. So far, it's just people saying that they found that, but they have produced no real evidence yet. If pictures come out or video comes out or anything like that, I'll be able to be a little more specific on that with you and give you more information, but until that happens, it's really anybody's guess. But there's a lot of tales of that. Now, me being a Christian, I believe in the Bible. And if we turn to the Bible here, there's a long history of giants in the Bible as well. I want to read you just a little bit of Genesis, and that's all the scripture I'm going to read. But then I'm going to tell you a very interesting tale that comes from the King James Version of the Bible. It comes from the book of Enoch. It comes from several of the lost gospels. It's a very interesting tale that I will tell you. But I'm going to start here in Genesis 6. And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be numbered 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughter of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And repented the Lord that he made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And the Lord said, I will destroy man, whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing, and fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. And then after that, they start to go into talking about Noah and his family and that whole story. Okay, now, there's a couple reasons why I read this to you. First, I want to go in here into the second verse that says that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair. The sons of God here are the angels. Saw the daughters of men that were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. So they liked the way they looked, and they took them as their wives. Okay, down here in verse 4, where it says there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that. Okay, and then it talks about the sons of God having children with the daughters of men. So the angels having children with human women. And the same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. So the children of the angels and the human women were the giants. That's what they call the Nephilim. That was the giants. Okay? Now, there's a reason why after that they start talking about the wickedness of man, and that it grieved God's heart how evil men was becoming, and that he was going to destroy them. That's what brings on the flood and all that. Now, that is very important. Okay? Now, that's all the scripture I'm going to read to you, but I'm going to tell you this story. I'm not going to go into all the different scriptures in the book of Enoch and all that, because it gets kind of tedious when you're reading dozens and dozens of passages. But I'm going to break down the story for you. If you look through the book of Enoch and you look through a lot of the lost gospels and all of that, the overarching story you get here kind of matches up with the King James Version of the story of the flood, but it gives you a lot more detail. See, in the King James Version of the Bible, we are told that God decides to flood the earth because mankind has just become horrible. We're just evil, sinning fools. And he wants to wipe the earth clean. But there's one family that he deems worthy to survive. That's Noah's family. And they build the ark. And they do the thing where they bring the animals on. That whole story. And they survive and repopulate the earth. Now, as we go into the book of Enoch and a lot of these other gospels, we learn a lot more about that story. There's a lot that was left out in the Bible that we learn from these other gospels. The reason why Noah's family was chosen is not because they were perfect people. It's not because they were abundantly good people. So it's not that he's a great dude, but his bloodline was pure. Okay, now that's super important, because remember, the blood is life. This all ties into Jesus Christ, because Jesus Christ, according to prophecy, had to be able to trace his lineage all the way back to David and then to Adam. Okay? In order to do that, there had to be a pure bloodline going all the way back in order to fulfill prophecy. So when Lucifer fell from heaven and he took angels with him, the plan that they had was to keep Jesus from ever being born. Because, see, Jesus comes at the end and kicks the hell out of Satan and all them people. They lose. spoiler alert, if you haven't read the Bible, the devil loses. Now, he don't want to lose. He wants to stop that from happening. So he figures if he can take Jesus out before he's ever born, then he can't come onto earth and die for our sins and then come back in Armageddon and kick his ass, right? So that's the plan. That's what the devil wants to do. The way he decides he's going to do that is by screwing up that bloodline. Because if Jesus has to be born from that pure bloodline, if he takes out the bloodline, all of a sudden there's no pure bloodline for him to trace back, so he can't fulfill prophecy at that point. He can't be born. So the way they decide to do that is the fallen angels come down and they start making babies with women. That offspring is the giants. The giants make babies with the women. That offspring, more giants. As time moves on, the bloodline gets diluted. Not just the bloodline that is going to eventually lead to Jesus, but also the bloodline from the original fallen angels gets diluted as generations go down. That's why we see giants going from their original height, which was like, I forget the exact number, but I did the math once. It's like 400 or 500 feet tall. It was insane. Now, they aren't born that big. They're born normal and they grow that big. But they were extremely large. But that also gets diluted, so you have the giants shrinking down. By the time you get to the story of David and Goliath, Goliath was around 12 foot tall. Other giants in the Bible during that time period were around 12 foot tall. So this 32 foot tall giant must have been an earlier giant than the David and Goliath giant that had survived. But anyway, back to the story. So this is how they want to try to get rid of this bloodline. So by the time of Noah, their plan had been going amazingly well, because not only were they having babies with human women and producing giants and really messing up the bloodlines, but also they were making babies with everything. They weren't just being with women, they were being with animals, with all kinds of creatures. And that's how a lot of the creatures that we talk about on this show came about, is through those pairings. So in other words, if a angel were to have a baby with a bull, you might get a minotaur. If it was to have a baby with a goat, you might get a satyr. All these different creatures came about that way. The Bible talks about in Genesis about that kind of stuff, about them having relations with animals and producing these offspring. That's probably another reason why God talks about in the Bible that bestiality is forbidden, because that's what they were doing. Or maybe just because it's nasty. Who knows? I don't pretend to understand what God wants, just what he said. So that was their plan. So by the time of Noah, most of the bloodline is messed up. The only family that still had a pure bloodline that could trace back to Adam in order to fulfill that prophecy was Noah and his children. So God says, okay, look, this is getting way out of hand. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kill everybody. I'm going to flood the earth and drown all these guys out. So he tells Noah, all right, look, dude, you got to build a giant boat. And then I want you to put 2 of every animal on this boat so that they can survive. Now, I believe the Bible to be true. So if the Bible says that it happened, I guess it happened. I can't even begin to fathom how you could possibly gather 2 of every animal and put them on one boat. To me, that doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm sure that if that's what God wanted, he made the animals show up and be nice to each other or whatever. But I mean, just insects alone, there's hundreds of thousands of species of insects. So I don't know how this all worked. But that's what the story is in the Bible. So Noah builds the boat. He gets on the boat. He survives the deal. Most of the giants are wiped out. Most of these creatures are wiped out. But not all. Because it talks about later, after the flood, there being giants on the earth and other evil creatures on the earth that had survived. The majority of them were wiped out. Another interesting thing from the Bible is, remember King David, during that time period, not only did he fight Goliath, but there were whole tribes and whole civilizations made up of only giants, where his people, the Israeli people, went and they fought all these giants. You had wars taking place between King David and his people and all these giants, where they would go in and have war and slay these things by the thousands. So it was an ongoing war trying to get rid of these giants, and they were trying to dilute the bloodline to get rid of Jesus. So it was a back and forth. They said, okay, yeah, that didn't work. So let's not do that anymore because it didn't work. So here's a new plan. We're going to hide because they're actively wiping us out. Because after the flood, you had a lot of killing of giants and these other creatures. A lot of these tales you hear from medieval times of knights fighting dragons and fighting different mythical creatures and all the witch trials and all the werewolf trials and all that stuff, all of that ties in to where there was an ongoing effort by the church and by the Christian people to wipe out all of these evil things. Because, see, all these evil things at the end of time are going to be back. Okay, the ones that survived are going to come out of hiding and they're going to be on earth during the tribulation period. There's all kinds of crazy creatures in the tribulation period. If you read Revelations, you'll be blown away. So they're hiding out. They're trying not to be found. So that makes sense why they would find this giant in a cave in Afghanistan out in the middle of nowhere. That makes sense to why it would be there because it's hiding out. That also might lend a little bit of credibility to that story I was talking about earlier of the giants in suspended animation in those crystal chambers underneath the ground in South America and Central America. I'm not saying it's true because I don't know, but it would make sense to where they would be hiding out because they do talk about fallen angels under the ground in Revelations, that once one of the vials is poured out, some of the fallen angels that were under the ground, sleeping underground, wake up and they come up onto earth to wreak havoc on the earth. Now, giants are not fallen angels. Giants are the offspring of fallen angels, but there's no reason why they couldn't be under the ground too. That makes perfect sense to me. So is the story of the Kandahar giant true? I don't know. Haven't seen the giant, haven't seen the footage, but I have seen the interviews with the military personnel. I have seen that, and they did not seem fake to me. If I had to say whether I believe this to be true or not, I would say I probably believe that it is true. I probably believe that there was a firefight that took place and a giant was killed. And I have no doubt that if that took place, that it would have been carted away with a chopper. They would have got it the hell out of there and taken it someplace to study it. I guarantee that, because that's just the way things work. It would have been classified immediately, and nobody would have found out about it that wasn't supposed to find out about it. The monkey wrench in the plan is that you have some soldiers and the pilot that decide they're going to talk and tell everybody what happened, because it was probably the most spectacular thing they've ever seen in their life. I mean, you got to think the average person who doesn't study this stuff doesn't believe that giants exist. They don't believe any of these things exist. So just imagine that you're doing your job as a soldier. You're expecting to have to fight terrorists or Taliban or something like that. That's what you're expecting to come out of that cave is Al Qaeda or something, right? You're not expecting a 30-foot tall giant to come out and throw a spear that's bigger than you through one of your guys, and then you have to unload your guns on it and kill it in this crazy fight that happens. That's the least possible thing that you would ever imagine could actually happen. So let's say that happens. I guarantee you, not everybody's going to shut up about it. Somebody is going to say, "Oh my God, can you believe this happened? I got to tell everybody. This is crazy." And that's, I think, what happened here. Now, am I saying 100% it's true? I can't do that because I don't know. But everything kind of makes sense to me from what I do know. And it is how something like this would have been handled. It would not have been broadcast to the world because that's not what our military does. We don't ever talk about things like this. Whether it's UFOs or giants or any kind of paranormal stuff, the military simply does not talk about it until they have to. And then they deny. They give extraordinary explanations. Oh, it's a weather balloon. It's swamp gas. It's this, it's that. They never tell the truth about it until there's no other option. That's just the way it is. Classify, classify, classify. When in doubt, make it top secret, and then you don't have to worry about it. That's kind of the way it works. So I would say probably it happened. I would imagine it happened. I have seen with my own eyes. I talked about this on another episode. I've seen with my own eyes during the riots that took place and the whole hands up, don't shoot thing that took place. There were a bunch of looters that were attempting to smash their way into a Rite Aid and burn it down. And a SWAT team showed up on the side of the building, and they were staging there on the side of the building to make their way around to the front and to stop these looters from burning this building down, because that's what the looters were attempting to do. So all of these SWAT guys line up on this building one by one. They come out of the SWAT van and they go run over and stage by the building and put their back up against it and wait for everybody to be ready to go around together in force. Well, all of them are around the same size. And then one of them comes running up, and he's twice as tall as all the other SWAT guys. Now, I don't know how tall these SWAT guys were. But if you think the average man is in between 5 and 6 foot tall, and if you think probably SWAT guys are the more alpha male, tough guy kind of people, so most likely they're going to be closer to the 6 foot range than the 5 foot range, I would imagine. You're not going to have too many tiny guys being SWAT guys. They're mostly big guys. But let's say, for the sake of argument, they were all 5 foot tall, which would make them very small guys. They only came up to this other SWAT guy's waist. So that would make that guy about 10 foot tall at the very least. Now, if you go on the upper end of that and you say that probably most of these SWAT guys were around 6 foot tall, because that would make more sense than a 5 foot tall SWAT guy, then you're talking a 12-foot giant there. And I saw this with my own eyes. I have seen video of it. I watched as it took place. So in that video, there was a real life living giant that I saw with my own eyes that was at that SWAT team that went to those riots and tried to stop those looters. After they staged on the side of the building, they all got together. They talked a little bit, which I don't know what they said because there was no audio. And then they all ran around the building together out of frame, and you never saw what happened after that. And that was the end of the video. But I saw it myself. I have seen myself photographs that were published in newspapers long ago, during the time of the Wild West and stuff like that, where there are normal sized people that are standing next to skeletons that are 2 and sometimes 3 times as tall as they were. Now, once again, if you're talking 5 to 6 foot tall people, you're talking 10 to 12 foot tall giant skeletons, sometimes even taller in the 20-foot range. I've seen that with my own eyes. So there is no doubt in my mind that these giants exist, just like the Bible said they did, and like the Bible says they still do. I 100% believe that. I have seen it, so I know it to be true. The Kandahar giant, I suspect is true. I can't prove it. So that's my ruling on it. I'm going to throw over to Old Boy now and get his opinions and see what he thinks of this story.
And thank you, buddy. And I really enjoyed this show, brother, because we've done this about the giant. I think we did a show about him and the Nephilim a while ago. So this was interesting. There it was 15, 16 feet when you're sitting there saying now it's 32. Now the thing I'm going to say is I believe it might have happened, but now there's been 2 different stories, because when we did it, it was like 16 or 17, and I've read the original story, it was 17 or 16 feet or 15. Now they're saying 32, so there is a contradiction there on the size. So that sounds like maybe it's exaggeration, but there is probably a giant. Maybe I think probably 15 to 20 feet. 32 feet's huge. And how would you hide that? I mean, you could, but somebody's going to say something eventually, because they talk about aliens. I mean, now even the Navy and them are coming out saying the aliens exist. So this giant 32, whatever this guy's saying, 32 feet. Some people are saying, the other soldier said it was 16. Him to impel, whatever that is, they impel a suit like that means that these giants know how to kill us, because it went through bullet piercing armor that take weapons and I mean not weapons, bullets. So it knew where to attack him. That's kind of crazy too. So that means they're intelligent, very intelligent, because they're still living at this time. So what my opinion is I think they existed, but maybe the story's getting exaggerated a little bit. But remember, like you were saying, they were 4 to 5. They were saying what I read is 500 feet. It's 400, 500. That's how big they got, these giants. And there's even saying some of them got even bigger than that. The behemoths, you read about Leviathan, that thing's supposed to be miles long big. So some of these creatures were even bigger than that. Like I said, I've read even one of the giants were almost 1,000 feet or higher. And those are one of the original giants. And I think that's where you get Kronos and all the Olympic gods came from. And I think that's where you're getting, the stories came from, with Kronos being one of the Titans. If you guys ever, and I heard they're doing a series on Netflix coming out about Kronos and all that. And I love that stuff. You got, Greek mythology. But I think that's where they got all these gods from. And like James was saying, like the Hydra and Taurus, the mixture of the bulls, the centaur and minotaur were all mixed. And that probably did happen. It happens now. They're just hiding it. Look at the lagger, half tiger, half lion. It's huge. It's 13, 14 feet when it stands up. So they've been doing this stuff already again. And now there's even rumors they're still doing it with monkeys and pigs and all kinds of stuff. So I believe it. Especially giants. There still is giants around. They hid the bones and everything. They got rid of most of it, but there's pictures of it. And what they do is they say it's fake, and most people believe everything, especially in the news right now. All they have to do is say, oh, it doesn't exist. 70% of people, yeah, I agree. The other 15, oh, well, if it does exist, I don't want to know, so I'll pretend it doesn't exist. Because one thing that I have noticed is when people get told something, they know it's probably not true, but they're just going to go along with it because they don't want to know the truth. That's why we don't find things out, and all this stuff is all legend and myth, because people don't want to know the truth and what their history is. Think about this. We didn't have movies back then, and they were talking about dragons, they were talking about giants, cyclops, God, whatever, hydras, all kinds of flying monsters and creatures and giants and everything you can imagine was going on then. So where did they get this? They didn't just all make it up. I mean, some of it is probably exaggerated, and it might have been, different animals that we know now were extinct. But, look at dinosaurs existed. They didn't just make those bones up in the museum and say, oh, yeah, some people actually believe that. It's idiotic, because they have to hide the bone. Anyway, those are just, the bones have been found. They're there. I've seen them. Everybody's gone to a museum. Hopefully, most people have, and have done the research. But there's people who think the giant sea turtle doesn't exist because it looks fake. But it really does, and it's huge. And turtles live for hundreds of years, just so you guys know that. It's something you guys might not have known. But I want to get off topic. But people don't believe anything. It's crazy. So most people are going to think and listen to the show, all these giants don't exist. The Nephilim existed, trust me. And they're still here, hiding and waiting for their time to come back. They're either, people believe they're biblical. Some people think they're the fallen angels from heaven. Some people think they're from Planet X, aliens. Or they're reptilian or something. There's all kinds of theories about the Nephilim or Nephilim. There's 2-3 different ways you can say it, the fallen. I've always loved this story. The Nephilim, I've used to talk to my friend before I even did the show about the Nephilim. And anytime we can do anything about the giants, especially them, I love it, because I've always been interested in the giants because they existed. And I totally believe this story. I believe maybe a little bit of the height has been exaggerated, but I remember what James was talking about, the riots, that giant came out. It's like 15 to 12 feet tall. He's huge, bigger than anybody else. Even the bigger guy looked like he was like 6'7", 6'7", 6'8", and he was huge. He looked like a small child. I know what James is talking about. I saw that video a while back. The Nephilim, there's different sets, just like the ones they got attacked by, and there's probably ones that work with our government. You never know. They didn't just go, well, we're going to kill everybody. You know what? They're just waiting on their time just like everything like James was talking about, and then something big's going to happen. I don't know what it is going to be. It's either going to be biblical, alien, whatever you want to believe. I have a difference of opinion on what James is, but he believes that. And I'm not going to argue that because he's not a liar. Just because you believe something different doesn't mean that person's a liar. They believe that. So he's not lying. That's what he believes. Just like I'm not a liar or anybody else. That's just they have a difference of opinion. But I believe the Nephilim existed. I don't know what they were. I don't know exactly, but there's a pretty good, they were either the fallen angels or they were alien or they were just something that's been here for thousands of years. We don't know. But I've always loved the story because I love anything like this. Even when we do the biblical things, people, oh, you're pagan, Satan, whatever, it doesn't matter. I still like it. I still like talking about it. People got this misconception is if you don't believe in something, you got to hate it and not agree with it. Well, you got to know what you hate or not disagree with. You have to read on some of this stuff. I can't go and say, oh, it doesn't exist, and I don't read anything about it. I've studied it. I have to. You have to know what you hate. Or no, I don't hate it. I just don't, I have a difference of opinion. But I know the stories. I can't sit here and quote scripture 100%, but I know some of it. And James has told me some stories, and to me, it's still a great thing. I don't know, the Noah movie was really bad. I don't know if you guys saw that. That was a really bad movie with Russell Crowe. They just lost me with that movie, but it was cool. There was they talked about the Watchers and all that, and I think the Two Towers is another one. I don't remember what it's called, but I actually didn't get to see that movie yet. That's Dark Towers. That's what it was in Twin Tower. That's Lord of the Rings. Sorry, guys. Dark Towers. That's also a book by Stephen King. You guys need to check that out. Or there's a movie too, I guess. But I didn't get to see that one yet. It's one I haven't got to see. But it talks about the Watchers and stuff like that. And they said the Watchers were the Nephilim. Some people believe that, or some people believe that they're just got that name and they're angels from. So I don't know. I believe the story. It's something we've already done about. That's why he's already explained pretty much everything, because we wouldn't even had a show if we would have played the articles, because it takes forever. But I believe this happened. I believe that it may be a little bit exaggerated because there's two different stories of the size now. We'll just say the thing was over 20 feet tall, 25, whatever, just to make it even. But let me ask you a question. You guys watch our show, and I would like to know if you guys listen to this episode to tell me how big you think this thing was, and what would you do in a situation if you. I know you're never going to see this, but say you were in the military, and tell me what you would do if this thing attacked you, or you were doing like something out in the middle of the desert, and all of a sudden you got confronted by a 15, 20-foot giant. What would you guys do, and how would you survive? I wouldn't know what to do. I mean, if I was armed, I'd know what to do. But hand-to-hand combat, you're not going to win. The thing's 20 feet tall. You're going to run and hide and try to defend yourself another way. If you have a gun, you're going to shoot it. That's all you can do. I'm a good fighter, but me and James, maybe we have a chance. If I don't even know, not on 20, 30 feet tall. That's a whole, unless we can run it over its foot or something, or shoot it. That's the only way you're going to kill that thing. We're not going to win hand-to-hand combat. That's not going to happen. He threw a spear through a soldier and basically killed him like a harpoon, like Jaws. There's no winning that. If he did that, he's going to kill one of us, probably both of us, unless we have weapons that can stop him. But what would you guys do? I know I never asked you, but I was thinking about maybe I could drill in some new stuff we could do. Start telling me what you would do in that situation, and how would you defend yourself, and how would you survive? So my opinion is this really happened. If you guys want to check it out, we'll put it up there so you guys can read the articles, and you can listen to our other video. I think we did what is the Nephilim, and we talk about this, what happens. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. But there you go, James. Go ahead, brother.
I know what I would do. I would do the best I could to make sure that dude didn't see me. You know, if I'm walking out in the woods or the desert somewhere or something, and one of these things is walking along, I'm going to try to avoid it at all costs. If it was coming right at you, I mean, you do what you got to do. You fight. Are you going to win? Probably not. It depends on what you got. I mean, I'm always armed. Okay, I carry a 357 with me at all times. If I'm ever out in the woods or the deserts or any place like that, not only do I have my sidearm, but I also have a rifle of some sort, whether it be a pump shotgun or a 30-30 or my 7 millimeter, my 8 millimeter, something like that. I have a good high powered rifle with me when I'm out there so that if I need it in a situation of a large predator, I can take care of that thing. But when all else fails, I have my 357, and that'll put a hell of a hole in you too. So I would do everything I could to kill it if need be. Now, we're talking here about a 10 to 12 foot giant if it's trying to hurt you. Imagine the original giants. Imagine the ones that the Bible talks about that were 500 feet tall. And I don't even really want to say what would you do in that situation because, dude, what could you do in that situation? That thing's 500 feet tall. But imagine the fear. I don't care how damn tough you are. You're chilling in your house, hanging out with your old lady and the kids, and back then there wasn't Netflix or video games, so maybe you're playing with sticks or something, whatever you did back then. You're just hanging out. And all of a sudden, everything starts shaking. Boom, boom, boom. Footsteps. Gigantic, thundering footsteps. You're like, what in the hell is that? You're freaked out because everything's shaking, right? Your collectible Thomas Kincaid lighthouses are falling or whatever. Now you're pissed. You want to know what's going on. Why is all my stuff falling down? So you walk out your door and you look and you see a 500-foot tall giant stomping his way towards your house. Dude, what are you going to do? Imagine that feeling, that fear of seeing something like that. Now, once you put yourself in that mindset, you can understand why people would turn to their leaders at the time, the kings and the knights, and say, hey, what the hell are you guys going to do about this? There's this gigantic thing coming. It's crushing everything, stepping on people, dude. Old Bernie over there, he was a good dude. He never hurt nobody. That thing just squished him. Grabbed his old lady Helga up and used her to pick his teeth. I mean, this giant is a first-class ass. You got to do something about this dude. He's a nasty guy. So then the king is probably thinking, dude, what do you want me to do? He's 500 feet tall. But he can't say that, right? Because he's the king. He's got to look like he's in charge. So he says, all right, what do I got? The toughest guys I got, my knights. All right, you dudes go kill that thing. And so then he makes it a noble quest, and you go and you have to kill the giant, or you got to kill the dragon and all that. That would be a crazy, crazy life to live. Imagine that. Imagine facing a dragon. I mean, my God, man, you're talking about a creature that can fly, that has a mouth full of razor-sharp teeth that are probably about the size of a school bus each, 4 feet with razor-sharp claws that are probably bigger than your car, and it can probably breathe fire. Imagine seeing something like that flying at you. And then think when you think back to all the movies and the stories, how they would be trying to shoot arrows at it and stuff like that, and the dragon's burning down the whole joint. Imagine being that dude that's standing on top of a wall trying to shoot little arrows at this gigantic monster that has armored scales and can breathe fire. Oh my goodness, man. I couldn't even imagine that level of warfare with something that powerful. And that's just insane. And like I was saying, a 500 foot tall giant, I mean, what are you going to do? I guess if there's enough of you, you could do something. If you have weapons and there's enough of you, maybe you could bring it down. But now imagine not just one 500-foot tall giant. Imagine a bunch of them dudes running around. I mean, what in the world could you do? How brave and badass was King David and his people? that they went out searching for these things to kill them off because that's what God wanted them to do. What I've always wondered when I read these stories in the Bible and the different scriptures and the different historical texts, I wonder, was there ever members of their army that were like, dude, are you crazy? We're going to do what? Wait. Let me get this straight. You want me to go over there and try to fight that thing? You do see it, right? You realize that's a 500-foot tall creature with a club the size of a damn redwood that is going to squish me. You know that, right? And you want me to do that? No, I'm not doing it. I've always wondered if was there ever any of them that were just like, yeah, screw this, I quit. I'm not fighting that thing. Because I would guarantee you, if that happened today, there'd be very few people that would stick around, man. You would have entire armies that would just run away and say, yeah, screw this, I'm not fighting that thing. I don't know if I'd run or not. I think if I had an opportunity to run, I would. But if you throw your family into the mix, like this thing's going to destroy your village and kill your family, I might die in the process, but I think I'd do everything I could to try to kill it just to try to protect my family because I love my family that much. But I don't know, man. 500-foot tall giant, I might just try to grab my family and say, look, you guys just got to come with me. We got to get the hell out of here. I know I'm supposed to go fight this thing, dude, but he's 500-foot tall and I'm not. And we're not going to win this, so let's just get the hell out of here. I think that would probably be the better choice. I don't know, but let me know down in the comments what you guys think. What would you do in that situation if you had to go and fight something like that? If say you're a member of the army or whatever, and your leader is like, all right, dude, I want you to go storm that cave over there and fight that dragon or fight that giant. I think I'd tell him to get bent. That's just me. I couldn't do it. There's just no way, unless it was a situation where I'm trying to protect my wife or my kids or something like that. That'll put a whole lot of steel in your spine when you're talking about your old lady or your children. You do a lot of things that you wouldn't ordinarily do to protect them. So maybe with that kind of stakes, I might step up to do it, but I don't know. It'd be a tough call. So let me know in the comments what you guys think, and I'm gonna throw it back over to old boy and get his final sum up and shout outs.
I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I really did. I'm glad we did it. We're gonna have an exciting show next week too about the Slender Man. So guys, keep listening for that one. That should be exciting because we're gonna do more because we found out more stuff. So it should be a really good episode. Thank you guys from ParaX for listening. I love you guys. Remember, you want to listen to all our old shows, go on James Hershey's YouTube page, James Hershey Jr., youtube.com. Check him out. You'll see him. The guy's a big, burly white guy. Looks like Stone Cold Steve Austin with a blue sweater. I think a flannel. Blue flannel. You guys can subscribe and listen to all the old and new episodes. And if you guys want shirts, merchandise, let us know. We'll tell you where to go and get all of the stuff you need to get. You need an autograph, let us know. We just started a fan club at Justin Cool, who works for Sal Hernandez and them from STX. And he does a lot of their, he works for them, and they're a horror company that makes a bunch of horror movies. And they just made Disturbing Behavior. Is that what it's called?
Yes.
So I'm just making sure. I don't want to say it wrong because sometimes I mess up names. And it's a great movie. You guys can get it at Amazon. I think you can get it at Walmart and Best Buy. Check it out. It's a great movie. I have it. Check them out all together. But we're going to end up having him on the show eventually too, because he's running the fan club. He's going to talk about different thing, and James will talk about that in a minute. So everybody have a great night. Misfits, sugar ladies, monster hunters, and demon lovers. I love you. Blessed be, and have a great night.
Yeah, we're gonna have Justin on at some point in the future. He does promotional work for STX Media, and he started a Staring into the Abyss fan club group on Facebook. And so if you guys want to join that group on Facebook, I don't know the exact address of it, but it's Staring Into the Abyss Fan Club. It's a group on Facebook. You can type it in and find it. He's the one that started that and runs that. So, what the idea here is, and I think this is kind of a cool idea that I pitched to him. What I'd like to do is, I'd like for him to gather questions from fans of the show that are in that fan club, and once a month, once every couple months, whatever, we will bring Justin on and he will ask a bunch of your questions to us live on the show. Now, these questions are not going to be vetted, so I'm not going to see the questions before he comes on the show, and neither is Old Boy. The idea here is that you guys can ask us anything you want to ask us. Just give the questions to him, and then he will come on the show and he will ask us live on the show the questions that you wanted to know the answer to. And then we will tell you the truth on the answer, whatever it is. I think it's kind of a cool idea because I get a lot of emails from listeners and a lot of questions. And I try to respond as much as I possibly can, but sometimes it gets a little overwhelming. And every once in a while, we'll actually do an episode where we will answer some of those emails. So I thought, since this fan club now exists that he made, I thought it'd be a cool thing to reach out to him and say, hey, look, man, you got this fan club going for the show. What if we give you access to us? What if we say, okay, you get questions from listeners that are fans of the show, that are in your fan club, things that they want to know, and you bring that to the show and we will answer them on air. So we'll bring you on every once in a while when you have enough questions to do an episode, and then we will answer everything for you guys. I thought it was a cool idea. If you want to be a part of that, go to the Facebook group. Like I said, it's Staring Into the Abyss Fan Club. It's on Facebook. You should be able to just type that in the search and find it. The gentleman's name is Justin Cool. You can look him up on Facebook as well. He is the guy that started that group and is the president, I guess, of that fan club. He runs it. So you can go there and you can join that group and you can post your questions and he will collect them and he will bring them here to us. I think it's going to be super cool if it works out. I hope that you guys participate in that. I know that a lot of you have questions for us because a lot of you comment and ask questions, and a lot of you send emails and stuff like that and ask questions. So if we can get you guys to go to that Facebook group and join it and ask questions, then we will be more than happy to answer them all for you live on air. Okay, the YouTube channel. Now it's shameless plug time. The YouTube channel is youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. That is where you will find everything. Okay, every episode of Staring to the Abyss, and there's a couple hundred now, I believe. They're all there, all the videos. We have every episode of Tales from the Abyss, the TV show we do. We also have a ton of different paranormal news videos. This is stuff like what we did tonight, where we take an article from the news and we present it to you and we comment on it. We tell you a little bit of the behind the scenes stuff and more information, and it proves a lot of the things we talk about on this show. It proves the existence of some of these creatures, and a lot of the things that we speak about on the show, we have news articles and stuff like that that backs it up, and those videos are also on that YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is 100% free. It always will be as long as it's up to me. So please go there and subscribe to the channel and enjoy it. It's there for you. The merchandise store is teespring.com/stores/staring into the abyss. That is teespring.com/store with an S on the end/staring into the abyss. That is where all the merch is. T-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, pillows, blankets, towels, just all kinds of stuff is there. If you're into merch and you want some staring merch, there's all kinds of cool stuff there. We have the staring logo with the staring eye, the purple eye, and all that there. That's on a bunch of different stuff. We also have merchandise with me on it and with Old Boy on it, and all kinds of different cool horror-themed designs that we've come up with as well and put onto merchandise. So there's a ton of different products there now. I really have put a lot of work into the store to come up with a lot of these designs me and Old Boy have. So hopefully, if you guys are into merch, you'll go check it out. If you're watching this video on YouTube right now, the link to the merch store is in the description box. So you can go down there and you can either click it or copy and paste it. I don't exactly know how that's going to work, but it'll be there for you. So if you're into merch, that's where you can find it. As always, thank you guys so much for all the support and all the love you give us. Thank you for tuning in. And next week's show is going to be, as Old Boy said, on the Slender Man. We did an episode on Slender Man before that is a spectacular episode. So if you have not heard the Slender Man episode yet, go to the YouTube channel and find that episode and check it out, because it is a spectacular episode. There's some new stuff that has come out on Slender Man. There was a witness report that took place not too long ago where there's a new sighting of Slender Man that we're going to go over and talk about a little bit. And the interesting thing about Slender Man is a lot of people think that it's a brand new thing from Creepypasta, but it actually isn't. It goes way back in time. I talk about that on the first episode. So go check that out and you'll be ready for next week. Thanks again. We love you so very much. And until we speak to you again, love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.